Morning everyone, Finlay here. Today we're going to take you through string set out for an external flight of stairs. In this case, we're going to use a riser flight of 1 metre. We're going to use a restricted going of flight of 1 metre 240 millimetres. Once we've worked the calculation, we end up with 6 risers at 167 mil. And we end up with 5 goings of tread at 248 mil. We've run those through our formula for compliance, 2R plus G equals 550 to 700, the BCA compliance check, and it works out to be compliant at 582, so we know we're okay to proceed with our string set out. Excuse me, walking around here. So the first thing we do on our string that we have here is we select the face side and the face edge, the two best faces of the piece of timber, or the string in this case, that the customer's going to see, and we start by marking our margin line. The margin line is the key takeaway for the initial part of a set out that we should be interested in, because it is the location where the front edge of the treads are going to finish in the string itself. So it becomes one of our crucial measurement points. I'm going to use the combination square. It's a very easy tool to set the margin line out with. We can simply run it across the top face edge of the timber with our sliding rule set to 40 millimetres, and we can easily mark out the line that we're after. I'm using a Sharpie today, and the reason I'm using a Sharpie is for ease of line definition, so you can all see it quite clearly. I've set the combination square to 40 millimetres. I'm just going to run it across that face edge using the Sharpie pen to clearly show the margin line. Now normally I wouldn't do it with a Sharpie. Obviously I would want this line to be as faint as I could make it because the customer doesn't want to see this line at the end or any of our set out lines. But I've got a little bit of a trick that I can show you when we get to the point of our presentation where we actually start to cut out the pockets for the treads. And at that point, you'll see that these lines have magically disappeared. So what we've done, we've marked the margin line, 40 millimetres from the top edge. We're now going to set out the location of our treads down that margin line, using our sequencing or our progressive number sequence, the measurements that we've calculated for where each tread will land down that line. So in front of you, I'm going to do that. And you can see, following the measurements that I have there, the progressive measurements, my first measurement is 150 mil. The tape hook's on, and I've got a mark of 150, then I'm looking at 449. Then I'm looking at 748. The next one is 1 metre and 47. Excuse my back. 1 metre 346. 1 metre 645. And 1 metre 944. So as you can see there, I've marked the progressive measurements out down the margin line to match the calculations that I worked out on the whiteboard for where each tread intersects with that margin line. I've then set up my steel square. And on the steel square, from the outside corner, I've marked 167 mil up the tongue, this being the tongue of the steel square, and 248, I think was my tread dimension. Yes, I've got 248. No, I'm a little bit out there. I might have to reset that. And you can see now, each measurement from the outside corner of the roofing square, 167 will represent the riser height as per the calculation, and the 248 will represent the going of tread. And from my initial mark, from my first initial mark, 150 mm in from the end, I'm going to mark a line down that outside edge. Not too long, but probably as thick as my tread material will be in this case. I can increase the size of that a little bit later, but for the moment that's enough. I'm going to slide my steel square back until I can see my progressive measurement that I marked, and it lines up with my 248 for my tread, going of tread. And I'm going to mark the full length of that line in for the moment. I'll slide my steel square along. From that same point, I will now line up the 167 riser again, and I'll just mark the front of the initial tread on that riser line, and I'll slide again, just slide back my steel square off the margin line, ruling in the top line of the next tread. And I'll continue that. And of course the last mark here, I'm simply going to do a line like that for the moment. Now as you can see there, this progressive measurement in at 150, and then I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 treads as per my calculation, and a line that will indicate the cut to the ground. So that's fantastic. At this point, I can then mark in each case for these tread pockets, or where the timber for the tread is going to go, the depth of the material for the tread, and I'm going to use a 45 mm thick tread, and I'll mark it as 45 just for the purpose of the exercise. It's going to be 45 mm thick. And of course I'm also going to mark the length of the tread in each case. Now as you can see from the calculation, we're dealing with a length of tread of 248 mm. So I'm going to put that mark there, 100 there, and I can go 348 just so I don't land in the centre fold of the 4-fold roll. I'm holding it on 100 at the front of the tread material. I'm marking 348, which is for each of my 5 treads. There we are. So now in each case, as you can see, I have the length of the tread material as per the calculation, 248, and I have the thickness at 45. I can bring back my steel square and I can actually mark what indicates the bottom of the tread in each case now. First tread, second tread, third tread, fourth tread, fifth tread. That's what represents the treads. In this case I have a protractor square. I'm going to line the protractor square up with my initial marks. I find a protractor square to be a very handy item. Just a glorified bevel, I guess, but certainly does the job. Excuse my back of my head again, and so I'm marking this out in front of you. Do apologise for that. Now I've marked out the back of each tread. Of course, what might be easier in this case to get around that, having to come back and do it twice, you simply line it up with my ruler. My 4-fold rule can be very handy. So now we have the 5 indicated tread pockets where the treads will go. We've got the indicated and correct riser height in each one of 167. We've got the ground cut at the end here. I can actually indicate that now to be all the way through for the foot cut on the string. And we've got the location where the hook is going to be manufactured to hook onto our deck. line, or this particular line that you can see here, which looks like another tread line, at this point it's not. It's actually going to be a cut line that will form the hook for the string to sit on the deck. And I'm going to reset my protractor square straight off the lines that I set out, way through in this case, because that will form the hook cut location. So that's terrific. We've got our margin line at 40mm. We've indicated our progressive measurements again down the margin line. Just to recap, as per our calculation, we've used and set up our steel square to sit on the edge of the timber, edge of the string, with our buttons working on the tread length, the going of tread length to the margin line, not to the outside edge of the timber. It's always to the margin line for the going of tread of 248 and the riser, individual rise height of 167 in each case. So we know we've done a reasonably accurate job there, as accurate as we can be with Sharpie. What we're going to do to form this hook up is we're going to imagine that this particular section is cut away, and then we have to form the top edge of our hook to sit on the deck. So what we like to do is, if you can imagine this particular section being cut away, and I'll shade that so that you can imagine that's cut out to that particular line. I like to use little arrow points as indicator lines to show that's going to be my cut line. That piece will then be waste and fall away. And what we'll be left with is something that looks like a sawtooth top on that top edge. So at this point, I'm going to measure up the size, 10, 20, 30, I'm going to use that as 40mm. I'm going to join those two lines up. Run that line all the way through. When the time comes, I'll actually cut that top section away as well. And then all we need to know is that we have this piece of string with this bit of material extending to form a hook. And I want to know the length that that bit of material is going to extend to sit on my deck. And I'm going to make that no less than 75mm, no more than 100 from that inside edge. I like to make mine about 75mm. And it sort of looks like a little bit of a mass of lines at the moment, but the waste material that comes away is everything that is shaded there. What remains, once the cuts have been made and the string's been manufactured, is the hook with the tread pockets cut out to take the tread material. And of course the ground cut at the end. So we've effectively set out the string to suit that specification. What we're going to do next is look at the size of the tread material that is going into those pockets and determine how big we need to cut those pockets to fit the material. It won't be 248, and I'll tell you the reason why it won't be 248 in the next short video. Thanks very much.